Cheers.
Good morning.
Morning.
We
Happy
are
St. Patrick's
live.
Day.
Welcome. Is it St. Patrick's Day? I had no idea.
Apparently
Yeah, it is. Happy St. Patty's Day.
So it's early in the morning, and the reason we are gathered here is for our weekly NoBS photo buzz with yours truly and John Butler, and a very special guest all the way from Littleton, Colorado. Anybody who's ever been a member of NoBS Photo Success would remember Paul. Back in the day. Paul's, we're going to hear his story and talk about what Paul's been up to. Paul Maynard. Last, I was just telling you off camera a minute ago that I was thinking about you a few weeks ago, and I was wondering, who was that guy that did nothing but ferries back in the day? And I remember doing an interview with you. With a little bit of research, it took me a minute to figure it out. It's Paul Maynard, of course. I couldn't remember for whatever reason. So I contacted you, and here, lo and behold, you're still in the game. You've pivoted, and we're excited to hear about your story and ask you some questions.
Sure.
Go down a few rabbit holes on all this. So, yeah, give us, Kenny, an update, sort of a bird's eye view synopsis as to sort of your photography journey, and then we'll get into what you're up to now. I'm excited to hear about it.
Sure. Okay. Well, so thanks you guys for inviting me. Glad to share my story. It really started back in high school. I literally picked up a camera my senior year in high school because I only needed one class to graduate, which was English, and everything else was a study hall. Instead of study halls, I took a photography class, and that's how it all started. And literally got a job my senior year in high school as a ski photographer in Hunter Mountain, New York, which is in the northeast section. And every weekend I photographed people coming off the chairlifts, did action photography. That company owned Colorado Whitewater Rafting Photography. So then I moved to Colorado, photographed rafters, was hiking in the middle of nowhere, and photographing people on the rivers, and that was super fun. That company also started having me do weddings and conventions and, business portraits, and did that for a number of years out here in Colorado. And then I went into a different direction for a little while, did some sold real estate, and then got out of that because I knew that was not my passion. And then circled back around and started a studio out of my home. And just, started off with the weddings and senior portraits and family portraits, and did that for a number of years. And then I do, as being a member of NoBS Photo Success, I saw you, Rob, doing the fairy portraits, and I was like, I started getting tired of the off seasons, which most of us photographers, have to figure out how to get through that off season. And so I tapped into the fairy portraits thinking, this might be a way to bring some extra income in during that off-season time. And I remember that first weekend was so incredibly successful. My entrepreneurial brain went, well, what if I did this all the time? And, I think I reached out, and you're like, well, you don't know unless you try it. And so I had this really interesting thing that happened where I was going to the annual convention, and it was down in New Orleans. And right before that, this was back in the day of the, what were those coupons, those online coupon deals?
Right.
I forget the name, what they were. And they said,
What
if you
were
can
they?
advertise with us, we'll put you in the queue and we'll see what happens. Well, I arrived at that annual photography conference, and I got an email the morning of going, hey, we're going to run your deal. I was like, oh, okay. Well, literally for 4 days, my phone didn't stop ringing. I sold 300 and something of those coupons.
Wow.
And while I was at that conference, I met, and I think it might be a friend of yours, Rob, who was doing fairy portraits with the calendar fundraiser. And so I met that person there, and I was like, hey, I have an idea to turn this into a charity. And so I came back. I had 300 and something appointments, and I was photographing cars at that time. That's what I was doing for car dealerships.
Okay, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What convention were you at? What was that for?
It was the
WPPI or something like that, or PPA?
It was
Just
it was a
curious.
PPA one.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. I can't
I
think
think
of
it
it
was
off the top of my
Groupon you're
head.
talking about
It'll
too.
come to me.
And it's a
Um,
Groupon special you had done back when those
Yeah, it
were.
was a Groupon, exactly. And so I
Cool.
came back, and that gentleman said, "Well, you should just call Children's Hospital. You might not get them, but call them and then go down the list." So I came back, and I was like excitement, sweating out of my skin.
Mhm.
Got the right person on the phone at Children's Hospital because I was relentless. I'm going to just find the right person. And when I found the right person, I pitched the idea. I said, "Look, you don't have to do anything. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to create this calendar. The proceeds are going to go to you. Here's exactly how it's going to plan out." And within 48 hours, they said, "Okay, let's do it."
Mhm.
So I had to stop doing the car photography, and that was February of, that might have been 2000. I can't remember the year. And so that was February. And from the end of February till December, I remember I did 265 fairy portrait sessions.
Wow.
Wow.
And it was nights, it was weekends. Moms were throwing money at me. I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. And so that rolled into about 4.5 years of just fairies.
Now, it couldn't have been 2000 because Groupon was not a thing until
No,
2008,
let
9.
me see. 8, 7, 6,
Probably
5. Probably 2004, 2005, maybe.
we
I'd
didn't
have to
start
look at
doing
I'd have to look at my hard drive. My
It doesn't really matter.
hard drive.
Just want to get a rough historical timeline here, so it's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Maybe it's 16, 15, 14, 13, 12.
We didn't ramp up our fairies until starting really in 2005 and 6 for us.
Yeah, so it had to be sometime after that. My hard
Yes.
drive tells the real story. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so I did that nonstop of just fairies, and then I did some edgy sports stuff, bringing in, doing the dragons and that kind of stuff because you were doing that too, and that was really fun. And then also started offering what I called edgy sports, where I was photographing some of the kids in high schools that were loving. Uh, that were going to go to college on scholarships. And so I photographed them on white backgrounds and put them on these fantasy backgrounds. And that went really well. And that was really fun. And then there was a challenge that happened in my life where, my wife and I were having some challenges, and it was probably one of the most emotional, mental challenges I've ever experienced in my life since breaking my neck when I was 23. And so I literally walked away from photography because mentally I was not in a mental state to operate a business. And so as my wife worked on stuff, and we worked through everything, and we're awesome and stronger than ever. But that year I had to figure out how to make some money, and I just couldn't deal with people coming into the studio. So I decided, oh, well, how about real estate photography? I don't really have to deal with people. And so I got a couple different independent contracting positions because at that time, mentally, I couldn't wear the hats because, as we know, running a business, you really have to be on it. There's so many different things that you have to juggle when not only operating business, but starting a whole new genre in photography. So as I did, I did stuff for Airbnb. I did stuff for this really small company out here that did some rental properties. There was another company here that was doing general real estate photography. So I just threw my hat in. I already had the equipment. And basically what they did is they said, open your calendar and we'll fill it and then we'll pay you. And you don't have to do anything. We're going to do all the editing, just photograph the stuff, and then we'll take care of everything and do all the deliverables. And so that was great, but the challenge with that well, just to back up for a second, just so everybody knows out there, because of my mental state, I hated it. I literally hated it, but I needed to make a paycheck. I had to pay the mortgage. I had to, put food in the refrigerator. I had to pay for all the stuff that I was dealing with back then.
Yep.
So for about 10 months, as my wife and I were working through it and doing all the counseling and working on ourselves, as I started to become better, mentally, emotionally, my entrepreneurial spirit started to come back, because when I was doing that other work for those 3 different companies, I made hardly any money. I mean, that year, the entire year, I think I made about $26,000 for the whole year. It was like back before, it was like I was back in college again.
Yeah.
And that was rough. So in that second year, as I was feeling better, I started to put all the hats back on. And in that second year, what really happened was I started to develop this system on the real estate photography. I really started to fall in love with it. Like, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not working late nights and I'm not working weekends. And I saw some other companies that were delivering, their images by 5 o'clock the next day, and the market was changing. And I saw the market wanting everything yesterday, especially in the real estate market. Like,
Yeah.
can we get things sooner? Like, can we get them by noon? And I was like, maybe if I go out there and I start marketing myself where I can deliver the images by noon, I can get a leg up.
Yep.
But what happened is that I was editing my images in my car in between shoots and delivering within 2 hours.
Wow.
And I was just doing it because I just didn't want to come home and be behind my computer screen. And I didn't
Yes.
want to, work over the weekends. So naturally, as the market changed, this was just starting to happen. So I was trying to develop these techniques, and how could I do it faster? How could I, and of course, delivering, high marketable images. And so I just kept digging in and tweaking, using Photomatics as my HDR processing software. And how could I change the settings in there so, I don't have to send things out to an editor, because I was a solopreneur and I needed every dime I could get my hand on
Definitely.
to reinvest in my business so it would grow. And
So by doing that faster turnaround time, you were giving them a service that no other probably real estate photographer in the area was doing.
exactly. And so that happened. And then the other thing I saw was, Colorado, we're pretty lucky. 85% of the time it's sunny here. But on those days that it's cloudy, everybody wants blue sky guarantee. And so I found a piece of software that I could use where I could drop a blue sky in, and it would literally take me 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So then I started saying, hey, how about I'll do blue sky guarantee for you guys, but I'm not going to charge you, because everybody else around here was charging like $50 to do that. I'm like, well, it's only going to take me 30 seconds. How about I add more value to my clients, and then they'll choose me over the other guys out there.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. Then the other thing I started to do was taking the exterior image of the house and putting them in all the TVs. And again, nobody was doing that back then. So I started doing that, going, I'm not going to charge you guys for that. Again, just adding more value. Then I found a couple back office systems where people could order online, but I wanted to be able, again, being a former realtor, realtors spend a lot of money on marketing. So I wanted to figure out a way, how could I provide a done-for-you social media marketing back office for them. So I found a system that had all this stuff in the back office, where once I uploaded all the images into this service, it created all this social media assets for the realtors. And I saw some other photographers using it, but they were charging for it. And again, I was like, well, what if I don't charge for it? So I started doing that. And then the last thing that I added was a lead generation sign writer to help my clients generate leads by putting a sign on top of their sign, on top of the house sign, saying, text this house number for more information. And I provided those for free as well. Now, yes, this stuff cost me money, but for me, it was a business expense. What I found is that if I didn't nickel and dime the realtors and was just going to get as much money out as one shoot, and looked at that big picture of, I can get 30, 40, 50 shoots from one client. So I just kept over delivering all of this value, and it just literally skyrocketed. I mean, I went from $26,000 that first year, where I mentally wasn't in the right state, to the second year to $58,000. When I started implementing all those other free services, went from and I shit you not, oops, sorry.
It's all good.
Went from 58 to $189,000 from my company.
Oh, wow.
It absolutely skyrocketed. And so it was no late nights. There was no weekends. There was no endless hours behind my computer screen. I was traveling more. Every weekend was doing some fun stuff. And I just feel like I found this way to get my life back.
Mhm.
And so it's been so exciting, as you can probably hear my voice. I'm super excited about real estate photography. I'm outside every day. I get to meet new people every day. What I love is that the houses don't complain. They don't cry. They don't tell me they don't like this spot on their face. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
It's just
It's amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
And so
Amazing.
then after this last year, I was like, well, what if because I've always been wanting to figure out how could I give back? How could I help other people? And so then I thought, well, what if I created a course to help other people do the same thing? So I went out and I bought all these real estate photography courses. And the one thing that I did not see was a same day delivery.
Mhm.
And so that's how I figured I could differentiate myself from these other online courses. So I just started filming. And since June, I've been just strapping a GoPro to my chest, photographing houses, editing, showing how I edit, like from the beginning to end, how I do it. And like, it's just been awesome. So I feel really excited about it because I feel like for the first time in my life, with using the talent that I fell into, I can seriously help other people get their life back. Because I hear all the time real estate photographers complaining about, oh, I'm spending so much time editing, or I'm spending so much money hiring an editor, or I hire that editor and then the images come back and they're not right. So I have to get them to fix it. And then I'm delivering late and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I have a way to help all of that.
Yes.
So I'm super happy. My calendar is constantly full. I have a really great set of clients. It took me a couple years to get there, but like any business, like if
Right.
it took somebody 2 years to get their business to always have the calendar full, I think that's a pretty good timeline. I think actually somebody could do it quicker with the
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
tools or the right mindset. So really that's my quick story of where I was, how I got here, what I did
Amazing.
to get here. But it was all about really taking action and having the right mindset and just following through,
Yeah.
This is cool. This is
Yeah.
cool.
Lots of
I
great
got
Yeah.
I got booted out there for 5 minutes. Power just went out. So I'm not going to go back and ask you to repeat anything. I can watch it. I can watch the replay. But I want to ask you one just question, because I'm sure you mentioned it, but I missed it. How long have you been doing real estate now?
So the real estate photography, this is going into total time of even with the independent contracting, 4.5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I like what you're saying, man. You are making so many good points, and a lot of it's to do with mindset, taking action, that entrepreneurial spirit, and of course, marketing. So
Yes.
I'm taking all kinds of notes. Okay, two questions I want to ask you. I don't know if John has any questions, but I'm going to go first. I got a technical question. I don't want to dig too deep into technical because I like to focus on marketing and mindset and success principles. You said something, and I see this throughout your promotional materials about getting your life back. And you made reference to it a minute ago about how you hear from photographers who are constantly complaining. And a lot of it has to do with their workflow. And obviously, this is in the real estate photography world, is what you're referencing. So, I've never done much of real estate. So, I'm coming from a sort of a naive angle. But the idea that I know is what's really big is photographers go in and they'll grab one or two, they're kind of like the marquee shots, and they'll spend a lot of time on those. So it's like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the energy is focused on, 20% of the shots, which are going to be the key selling shots. And they do multiple exposures. The camera's locked, tripod, and they do like 4 or 5, and they light it. Then they got to go back into Photoshop and they got to stack them and do the thing and get the maximum tones. Is from a technical standpoint, and again, I don't want to dig too deep into that, but from a technical standpoint, is that similar to what you do, or have you? Because I read your website and you put right on there your settings, which I'm looking at. I'm going, that's pretty straight up and functional, very functional. Can we talk about that for a minute, and I'll get into some of the marketing stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I do HDR stacking. I'm doing 5 exposures. I'm doing it. Okay. So yes, I'm doing the 5 HDR exposures. I'm adding 1 extra flash exposure. So it's a total of 6 exposures.
Okay.
And the
Okay,
reason...
Hold on, Paul. I got to clarify for those who are going, what the hell does he mean by HDR?
Oh, yeah.
The camera's doing HDR. You're not doing the HDR, correct?
Correct. Okay. And
This
so I have...
important.
Yes, it is. Sorry. We get so locked in our head, I forget sometimes there's some new people on here. So HDR is high dynamic range. So basically what it's doing is it's capturing all the way from the deepest shadows to the brightest highlights. It's taking those 5 different images that are 2 stops apart from each other. And then when you bring it into the software, it crunches them together and it outputs the final image that looks like you're actually lighting it with lights when you're not. So if I'm sitting in one room from the kitchen and I'm trying to show a potential buyer how that kitchen rolls into the living room or the back hallway where it's dark, that HDR is going to light up that back hallway without me having to add a light to it. Nice. It also saves a lot of time from, because I did do some real estate photography back in the day where I used lights, and it could take hours to go light one room. So I love HDR. And so what I found with that technical thing, Rob, was when I did output it from the software, which, by the way, there's a couple different softwares out there. Some people do it right from Photoshop. Some people do it in Lightroom. I use Photomatics and Aurora HDR. I do prefer Photomatics better. But what I was finding was when I was taking it out of Photomatics and bringing it into Lightroom, just so I can, if I had to make a couple little tweaks, is that with color casting, so you've got the ambient light coming in from this window. Some of the houses, you're going to have a red wall over there, and you're going to have a gray wall over there, and then you're going to have whatever light bulbs are in. So sometimes you have this weird color casting going on. And it was taking me longer to make those adjustments. So then I started playing with adding a flash exposure, and that changed my life completely.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
it
took away that color casting. Flambient. It's almost like a flambient, but I didn't want to spend all the time doing flambient, because then you'd have to go into Photoshop, do a window pull, cut everything out. I was like, I don't want to be spending time on my computer. So I got that editing down to total time for the minute I walk in my car till I'm driving to the next property, about 20 to 30 minutes, and I'm delivering the images by the time I get to the next property. That's
amazing. Wow. So we're not going to get deep into that because we don't have enough time, but that is all in your course, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to send out a mass email later on to promote your course
thank you
and whatnot. So just to help you out, because I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing. Quick question, just to sit on the technical aspect of things. What about doing HDR like my Sony system and my previous system was the Nikon 800. It did the 6 exposure or 3 exposure in camera. What about that option?
Yeah, absolutely. So as long as you have automatic exposure bracketing on your camera, you can do HDR. Yeah. And what I suggest to anyone that wants to do this and play around with and experiment with it is to because each camera has a different setting. You can either do 3, 5, 7, 9, depending on what that camera is. And you put it on a timer and let the camera do its thing on a tripod. Yeah. So no cable release, because there's a potential of shaking that camera. So you just do that 2-second timer. Don't touch it. Don't move your feet, because the carpet will move, and let it do its thing. So it's really that simple. And it's all about, of course, at that point, composing that shot, making sure you're painting the picture for the buyer, because that's what this is about.
Exactly.
What camera system are you using?
I'm using the Canon EOS R. And the only reason I moved to that is I've had 2 herniated discs in my back for the last couple of years. And so I was using a Canon 5D Mark II, and that constant bending over, looking into the viewfinder and standing up, and then bending down and standing up. So I had to get a flip screen. So I could just stand up and look straight down. That's the only reason I'm using that camera, is because the flip screen. And it's lighter.
You go to your wife and you say, "I'm getting old. I need a new camera."
That was it.
And I think a lot of people too need to realize too, when you're doing that HDR, you're changing, you're keeping your aperture and your ISO the same. You're just changing your shutter speed, because if you change your aperture to change it, you're going to change your focusing point, and you're not going to get everything in focus. So I think
Exactly.
I usually set mine to like f8 or something like that when I'm doing it.
I'm on f8, so then I can get that focal, so I can just move from room to room, and I never have to change that.
Exactly.
Never.
Cool.
I've seen people do that. They actually change the aperture instead of shutter speed, and then they wonder why their images aren't so sharp, and it's because that focusing range is changing.
Yep, absolutely.
So there's a lot of info, and again, we're going to guide people and send people towards getting your program. I think I was at the website looking at it. It's a really good value. It's a really good price. So we'll get to that later. Maybe we can put the reminder on the screen right now, John. I'm not sure if that's available.
No, definitely. And before you go into marketing, can I ask him one thing? I was on his website and I'm looking at all your upgrades that you have on there. One that actually stood out to me, because you do it for one room, it says starting at $699, is your virtual staging. So I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about that. Not too much, but like, because I'm looking at the before is just an empty room. The after has it all staged up. And how you did that? Did you virtually add the furniture in there, or is it actually you shoot it twice? You go there another time when it's all staged?
Yeah, so I do have some clients that want to have virtual staging done, and this is the one area that I do hire an editor, because a designer to do this, it's a lot of work. So I do send images out to a local designer that drops that furniture in.
Oh, okay.
And when I'm talking to realtors, because staging a home is really expensive. But the virtual staging, it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than physically staging a place.
Okay.
And I would say, maybe 20% of my clients are taking advantage of that. When you're in a hot market, there's not a lot of that going on. But if you have a house that's sitting for a long time, that does make a lot of sense as an add-on to somebody's project.
That's very amazing. Cool. I never heard of that.
That was what stood out to me.
So here's something else that let's piggyback on that real quick before we move on, is virtual Twilights. So, and this I was doing a little bit of this before, but because of COVID, the whole market has changed because of COVID for a lot of different reasons. But with COVID, when you're doing a Twilight shoot, you're going 30 minutes before shooting that house. The clients have to, there we go. There's a virtual Twilight right there. Your sellers and your clients have to hang out with you for the whole time babysitting you. So that's a lot of time for people to hang out. So what I was doing was approaching my clients going, look, I can photograph your house in the middle of the day. We don't have to have the clients either leave the home, not be able to have dinner, for that extra hour at the end of the day. I'll go shoot it in the middle of the day, and then I will virtually do a Twilight on that home. I can control the sky. I can control the lights in the windows. I can control everything and make it pop off of the MLS or wherever you're marketing. So what happened was I went from doing a Twilight every night of the week to not doing any more Twilight shoots, which, at the end of the day in Colorado, the sun's not going down till 9:00. So I'm not spending, again, late nights doing that. I'll go shoot it at noon, send it off to my designer. They get it back to me the next morning. They remove all the shadows. It looks realistic, a little bit more on the RT side. And I market it that way. Like I tell them, look, it's going to look more a little bit like art. It's not 100% realistic, and that's okay. It's all about getting the potential buyer to stop. So they'll take a closer look at that listing. That's the whole idea.
Very cool. Dream. That's amazing. So quick question on that topic. That's amazing. Another thing I had no clue existed. So Is this something that's done in some program later on in Photoshop, for example, and that you're outsourcing?
So this, like, the only things that I send out to editors is the virtual staging and the virtual twilight,
Okay, cool.
because these things take a lot of time. And
Yeah.
as I talk about, not only in the course, but in all of my, because I do a lot of video tips every day, is I want to save you time and make more and help you make more money. So if you don't want to sit behind your computer and you don't want to do all that editing, these are two particular things that I do send out. Because again, can I do that? Sure. Do I want to? No. And I'm being honest. Like,
Yeah.
some people, that's what they want to do, and that's great. And if that's what you want to do, then do that. But if you're someone like me, who I'm 55 years old, I love making dinner for my wife, I love going to happy hour with my friends, I like playing golf, I like playing frisbee golf. That's what I want to do. I want to have the balance in my life. It took me so many years to figure that out, where before it was like, I'll just work all day and make all this money, and which I did, but then I was not happy, and then it turned into a job. I don't want a job. I want to love picking up my camera every day, and I love picking up my camera every day. So
Yeah.
if there's certain things that I don't, want to do, I'm like, all right, I'll let someone else do it. But as in the interior, exterior editing of the house, when I can do something in 20 minutes and it's in my car in between, that's part of my workday. And then I don't have to, I know that that's going to add more value to my client, which makes them look like a rock star. Then I'm helping them build their business that way.
Obviously, same day delivery addresses that as well.
Yes. And then when I'm actually delivering it within 2 hours, I literally make my client look like a rock star to their clients. So they see that I'm their partner. I can't tell you how many times, guys, that the realtor will call me and go, man, I can't believe that you did this. I don't know how you do this, but my clients are so incredibly happy with you delivering it because I gave it to them. So I'm making them look good. Like, it's not about me. It's about my clients. If my client looks like a rock star, then every time they're going to come to me, because every time they do a listing appointment, they go, I work with this guy and here's what he's going to do. And so I'll over deliver that. And it's like that residual income thing. You do something once and you get paid over and over. So I just service my clients and they just throw listings at me. And as their business grows and they grow their business, I get more listings. And as they grow a team, their whole team sends me their listing. So it just seems to make sense to me. I see a lot of real estate photographers, trying to recreate the wheel and making it a lot harder for themselves. And if you want to do that, okay, fine. That's okay. But no reason to do that.
That's amazing. It's amazing that you got to that point. And I'm going to assume 30 years ago, when you were starting out, if you were on the same journey, in many ways, when you look back and connect the dots, I think this way all the time. I connect the dots and I go, well, this happened, that happened, and I struggled here and I did too much here and not enough here. And you kind of connect the dots and you go, well, I needed to go through all that in order to achieve and realize what I achieved now. Is that kind of weird or what?
Yeah. I mean, I look at that all the time. I think of, I watch a podcast and somebody said, oh, hey, if you had to go back and do it all over again, what would you change?
Good question.
My answer is nothing. Because if I change something back then to make something easier or whatever, then I wouldn't be where I am today. So the struggles, the choices, you have to go down that path to get to where you want to get to. And most of the time, you don't know where you need to get to until you go through those struggles. And so, it is funny. I mean, I pinch myself all the time going, oh my God, like I had to go through that. I had to spend those hours behind my computer screen to figure out what I didn't like,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because there's so many, like, those of anyone who's a parent understands, like, when they have a child going out to get a job, like, oh, I hate that job. I'm like, well, the reason you go and get those crappy jobs is you figure out what you don't like to figure out what you do like. And I think it's the same thing in any business, and I think especially in photography, like, Some people love to do portraits, and some people love to work with families, and some people love to photograph cars or children or whatever, fill in the blank. So you just got to figure out what that niche is for you. What is it that you love? Yeah, maybe you want to be the jack of all trades, or maybe you just want to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
But you don't figure that out until you do it. And so that's what happened with me, Rob. It just, I mean, literally, I fell into it. This was never a plan. Never.
It just happened.
It just happened.
But I want to point something out. I mean, you mentioned this earlier. You keep asking the question, how can I add value?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the mindset, really. And you ask the question over and over and over and over, trying to push through to that level where you're going to create something with your skills that you can deliver to your client based on that question. Instead of worrying about what your competition is doing, well, you kind of worried about it in the sense that you're going to create something that is different from what they're offering. That's such an amazing question.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, in the beginning, I think in any new venture, you worry about your competition. But as soon as you transition into how can I deliver the best product possible to help my clients, then the mindset's completely different. Like you know, there are so many real estate photographers in Denver, I can't even tell you.
Really?
And there's a lot of them that are much better than me. Okay. But they're not me. They're not Paul. Only Paul can bring Paul to the table. And so that's what I want to do. Like, I just want to, you know, I don't compete with anyone but myself. So every day I'm thinking, what can I do to improve myself today to help my client? And what else can I learn today to keep my finger on the pulse of things, whether it's marketing or photography, to help my clients build their business? Because if I can help them build their business, well, that's really my legacy, is just helping others. Like, a lot of people say they want to do things to give back and do something. They don't know what to do to serve other people. It's your talent, whatever that talent is, whether it's photography, whether it's insurance sales, whether it's cleaning toilets, you know, you give all of yourself to give back, and that's how you serve others.
I love it.
And it's the mindset. It really is having that right mindset.
And the questions will get answered if you're asking them. You mentioned the question earlier, how can I provide a done-for-you back office solution for that particular niche?
Yes.
And so it's working out. Obviously, your clients that are hiring you. I love this idea of you're making them look like rock stars. You don't care who gets the credit. You want them to get the credits. So they look good to their clients.
Right.
It doesn't matter to you so much, right?
No, it doesn't. I mean, of course, I'm seriously blessed and grateful for the clients I have, which I had to develop. But I'm like, when I get the email from them going, thank you so much, Paul, or, you know, the images look amazing today, or my client, I want to share with you what my client said, you know, the seller said on the images. You know, that's awesome. That feels good. We all want recognition. You know, we're human beings. And so seriously, be making them feel like rock stars, man. It's exciting. Like, I have a couple of clients when I remember they first started out 3 years ago, and now they have this giant team. And so I've watched them grow their business, and my photography was part of it. My you know, I made a difference in their life, you know. And something I want to share really quickly is that when I photograph a room, I know when I click my camera, it's going to impact at least 6 people's lives. When I photograph that room, it's going to help that seller sell that house so they can move on to the next part of their journey. When I click my camera and I take the picture of that room, it's going to help the buyer buy that house to start new memories. It's going to help the selling agent and the buyer's agent put money in their pocket to help their family. And it's going to help the brokers agent for the seller and the buyer, build a bigger portfolio. So I'm impacting all these lives using my camera, photographing rooms. And so I always keep that in mind. Like I'm walking into a situation, and it's not all rainbows and unicorns every day. There's challenges, like, because it's a business. But I walk into a home every time going, man, today I potentially going to change 6 people's lives. And man, I'm telling you, it took me a long time to get here. Like this didn't happen overnight. This took me a really long time. So anyone out there, if you can sit back for a second and look at what you're doing and how are you using your talent to change the direction of people's lives? Like really sit back, write it down, draw it out of whose lives you're affecting in whatever direction of photography that you're doing or any business that you're doing. It's that
That's
mindset
amazing.
is huge.
I've never thought of it that way. You can teach an old dog new tricks, and you just did.
Awesome. Woo!
Well, it's a good thought experiment. It's a good imagination-based thought experiment where, I mean, what a concept. That I think you mentioned it, but that could be applied to anything: fairy portraits, family portraits, wedding portraits, obviously, and all of that stuff. So that's cool. I have about 89 questions, but I'm going to bring it down to just a few. John, do you have any questions?
No, I'm soaking it all in. I mean, I think the 2 big things I took was that make my client look like a rock star, of course, and also what can I do today to make me better to help my client? I think those 2 statements are big right there, because I know in our profession, we don't do like the yellow pages anymore. You're not doing all the typical advertising and marketing we used to do. So our biggest advertising is our clients and word of mouth. So if you can do those 2 statements that I just read, you're going to get clients coming back to you twofold, because they're going to praise you to all their mutual friends saying, hey, you need somebody, go to this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also something that might be important to share is that every day I go into a house, I take my phone out and I make a short video of some kind of value that I think can even help other photographers. So to give back to them. So like, for instance, maybe I go into a bathroom and I have my reflection on the wall. I say, well, here's how I would dress this. As in, again, like with the course, I'm doing the same thing. I want to give as much value as possible. And it's sort of like the Gary Vaynerchuk mindset of like, just give everything away, give it all away. Like there's nothing to hide. So I'm sharing every day in every house of how to do a certain technique or how I would approach it, or, just to add more value to somebody, like outside of this course. Like if nobody buys the course, well, whatever, it's an incredible learning. I'll learn something incredible from it. But I know that every day on my TikTok, like today, I'll be making 2 videos today. Well, of course, they're probably going to be about the snow and how I deal with it. And I'm just going to share it. Be like, here's how you do it. Here's how I'm going to shoot this room, or here's why I'm going to do it this way. Just to give more value back to whoever that client may be.
It's cool.
So I think that's really important. And then, John, you mentioned something about marketing. Can we address a marketing real quick?
Go for it.
Okay. So in the beginning, when I didn't make a whole lot of money and my mindset wasn't there because I was dealing with some emotional stuff, in that second year, when I started to put all the hats on, I still didn't have a whole lot of money for marketing. So I went old school through social media. And basically what I did was every day I went on Instagram and LinkedIn and real estate photography Facebook groups, and I was reaching out to realtors. Hey, my name's Paul. How's it going? How's business? Like having a conversation instead of going, hey, I'm a real estate photographer. You should hire me. And I did that every day. And I did that nonstop, probably 2 years. And most of my clients came from social media marketing. I didn't spend any money. I didn't run Facebook ads. I didn't have money. I just made connections.
That's good.
And that's how I did it. I literally was asking or just introducing myself. And then when I did get to the ask, my ask would be this is, hey, I know you're working with a real estate photographer, but I'm sure they go on vacation or they might get sick. So if they ever go out of town or they're not healthy, I would love to earn your business to fill in for them.
Right.
Because I knew what I was bringing to the table, but I also knew, like, I'm never going to talk down about anybody. Like, there's so many great photographers. I'm not going to talk down to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just in that position where, like, if you're in a spot, I would love the opportunity. And so that's how I went about my marketing.
Yeah.
And then once that started to build, the biggest thing that helped was that I joined the Real Estate Association,
Mm-hmm.
and I sponsored a class, the annual commission class.
Nice.
And I basically had 6 minutes to introduce myself. And the 2 classes I did, the most powerful classes, are the annual commission update class, because every realtor has to take it. And so I did it twice, 2 weeks apart. There was 100 realtors in those rooms both those days.
Nice.
7 days apart from each other. And I just stood up and I'm like, well, here is my opportunity to sell myself. Mm-hmm. And awesome. I did. And that was the biggest thing I did. I started with the free stuff on social media, and then I put myself out there and stood in front of a room of 100 people, which was scary, but it was exciting at the same time. But I've never spent any money on marketing. There's no reason to spend money on marketing. It just isn't.
You sponsored those classes. That must have costed you some money.
Yeah. So basically, I had to bring food.
Okay. All right. Money well spent. I mean, that's affiliation marketing. That's such a great example. But I want to just point something out. And I was going to ask you the question. You literally just answered it. So we don't need to go there again. It's like you're psychic. But I was going to mention something about what you mentioned earlier when you started with the fairies and Groupon and you had left and you were so excited. The excitement was sweating out of your skin. And then you went after I think it was the hospital. Mm-hmm. And you said the key word, and I hear it again in the story you just told us. You were relentless. Yes. That's important. 2 years you pushed social media, made connections, and then you had an opportunity to jump up in front of those people and give your 6-minute spiel. That's golden. That's 24 karat gold encrusted with diamonds. So
yeah, I agree. I think if you're going to start a business, hopefully you love what you're doing. And then you have to go at it with 150% of yourself. Like, you got to bring you and your passion to the table, cool. And I was relentless, and I didn't stop. I mean, I still don't stop. I keep myself in check. Like, I don't ever want to get complacent, which can happen very easy when you start getting some success.
True.
And you have to stay on top of it. You have to continually bring the value and the passion to the table. You constantly have to be relentless, because otherwise, someone else is going to be more relentless than you. And all of a sudden you could lose some business because you're not bringing your passion. Now, look, has it happened in these 4.5 years? Of course, there's been some times where I just kicked back, was like, oh, I'm doing okay. And then I would catch myself, and then I have to pick myself back up, because I'm a human being. That's going to happen. But relentless. You have to be relentless. And just like when I had those 6 minutes in front of the people, I felt like that was going to be my 15 minutes of fame for Hollywood. It was like, it's all or nothing right now. So I have to bring it all to the table.
Nice.
So I shared how passionate I was. And then I asked, at the end of that 6 minutes, and you always have to ask, because my dad always says, you don't know unless you ask. And at the end of both those meetings, I said, I am asking for your business today. Not maybe use me, not that if your photographer's sick. That was not the moment to do that. I was in front of 100 people going, I want your business. I'm asking you today, hire me, see for yourself, see why I'm so passionate.
Powerful. That's powerful.
So I think anyone out there, whatever photography that you're doing, man, show people how much you love it. Show them your passion, and then ask them for the business. Just straight up. So what? Are they going to say no? Maybe. And if they do, ooh, it's what? It's just a word. The next one is going to be a yes. Well, the next one after that.
I think when you show people you really want something, that really just lends a lot of credibility. Just that in and of itself. So I love that concept too. Okay, before we wind her down here, I've got 2 quick questions for you, Paul. You work with your wife?
Nope.
She's got her own gig going?
She's got her own gig. She works in marketing for another company. She is helping me with the real estate photography course, where she'll do some back end. She does some of the back end stuff on that.
Nice. The next question is about the course. So I want anyone watching this or watching the replay to consider checking it out. Maybe we could put the website up on the screen, and I want to ask you, how long is the course and how much is it?
So the course has over 80 videos in it. It is, and I'm in pre-launch right now, which means I just have more editing to do of those videos.
Okay. So it's not ready yet.
It is ready, but it's in the pre-launch. And here's what I mean about that, is that right now I am offering a deep discount for first timers to come in to actually help give some feedback to me. So I've got a free training in here. There's no opting into it. The course will be, because it's A to Z. It's literally business in a box, A to Z, everything you need to build that business. It will be $895. But right now, in our pre-launch for early adopters, it's only $199. And so,
well, that's value. That's like 75% off.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to, again, I'm looking for the early adopters, and I'm doing it this way for a specific reason, because, when you're in something, sometimes you're so tunnel vision that you might be missing something. So with the early adopters, what I'm looking for is to have people go through this course, and you'll be able to go out and start a business with it. But those early adopters might see something that I might not see and say, hey, Paul, you know what? I need this. I'm missing this part. So I will add that. And those people also help me put some testimonials in. Or they might say, hey, Paul, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand that. And then I'll have to tweak it. And so I'm going to be in this hopefully a 3-month of early adopters of everybody going through it. And, I also have a Facebook page for it. It's a private Facebook page. So we'll be doing some group coaching. There'll be some one-on-one coaching on there. I've created, the course is also going to come with commercial photography for real estate, aerial photography. There'll also be a full A to Z manual on real estate photography. I mean, I'm throwing everything at it. It's everything, just like how I'm doing my real estate photography for my realtor clients. I'm going to over deliver this. I want to give you everything you absolutely need to go build a business you're proud of. No late nights, no weekends, no endless hours behind your computer screen. Have a life and feel so great about helping your clients look like a rock star, because really that's what it's about.
Rock star.
This course is to help them look like rock stars, so you feel so great about, oh my God, I have an incredible business, and your calendar will always be full.
So this course itself, it's not just for or people already in real estate photography, but it's for beginners, it's for intermediate, it's for advanced ones. You can start with the camera equipment you have now. You don't have to buy all these tilt shift lenses and things like that. Just basically what you have now, you're going to teach them how to start.
Absolutely. It's for anybody. It's
awesome.
for anybody. Yeah.
That's an incredible offer. So you're kind of in the beta stage right now before the official launch. So the fact that I reached out to you was pure coincidence, and it's kind of it almost sounds a bit scripted, but it's not. It's just like, oh, he's doing that.
No, I mean, when you dropped into my Facebook Messenger and then you mentioned this, it's like, oh man, like the timing is incredible right now, because
the stars were aligning.
Yeah, and stuff like that happens all the time.
I noticed that in life. that when you hit the right direction, mindset, and commitment,
Yeah.
little things happen.
When you're wanting to go out and really enhance the lives of other people, things come into play. I'm trying to remember who said it. Help enough other people get what they want, and you get everything you want.
It might have been Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar, yes.
Well, I'm part of a marketing networking group called BNI, and our actual philosophy is givers gain. If I give business to this person, they're going to want to give business back to me.
Exactly.
It's a good one. 2 words, givers gain.
Yeah.
So, Paul, we'll have you back in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months.
Great. That'd be great.
You're on for that?
Oh, I'm down to talk anytime, to give back, just whatever we can do.
Well, we want to keep in touch with you and see how things are going and all of that stuff. That's really good. I'm excited. So I'm going to send out some promotional material for this. Your offer is incredible. So, do you have any closing questions, Johnny? I want to ask.
I'm just thinking that I might have to take advantage of that offer because I do some real estate around here too, and I like that it's. I'm looking at your website and just everything's phenomenal. I like that idea of, because I do a mixture, either HDR or I do Flambient, but I like that way that you were talking about doing the HDR and just adding that one flash pop. I'm interested to go into your thing there and see how you do that and things. So I'm learning a lot myself just listening.
Awesome. Great.
I think the biggest lesson for me, Paul, really the biggest lesson, I'm going to put 99% on this one, is your attitude and the fact that you focus on the marketing. That's the driving force.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of that. And it's entrepreneurialism. That's the core jet fuel for any business.
Yeah.
And, so anybody watching this or listening to the replay, if you're focused on the equipment and the strategy, that in many ways should be secondary and only should be approached because you want to answer that first question that Paul brought up. How can I change people's lives and how can I make them look like rock stars? And if the technical leads to that, then okay, that's it.
Yep.
But don't obsess about it, right?
Absolutely. It's super important.
So you're
because, when you have a lot of energy, you're showing people a lot of energy. And I'm like how I'm talking to you guys right now. This is how I talk all the time.
Yep.
And when I'm with my clients and walking in a house, it's the same thing. Or when I leave a house and just the sellers are there, I'm so excited. I'm like, so thanking them, saying your house looks amazing. Like it's the energy all the time because I love what I do. I love what I do.
You can see that passion.
So if others like what you're saying, Rob, it's so important.
Well, what I like too is that most companies go out and they pay all these people as a sales staff to go out and bring the clients in. You're using basically your clients as your sales staff. Basically, your sales staff is paying you.
Exactly.
That's a good
It took a couple years to get there, but like any business, it takes a couple years. And so now I make sure I service my clients, make them look like rock stars, and they build my business for me.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. This has been really good. I'm glad we got you on today. It's been amazing.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I'm so grateful. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys and hopefully, help other people, whether they take advantage of the course or not. Hopefully, some of our words will spark their minds to, go out and do the best thing that they can do for themselves and their families.
Cool.
Yep,
appreciate it. So, all right, guys.
All right. I guess we'll call it one for this week.
Look at that, 1 hour bang on.
There you go.
It's right on the nose.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Johnny.
Take care.